Hello, welcome to Let's Talk Real Estate and Stuff podcast, where we dive deep into the world of real estate investing and spoil the random stuff that makes everything interesting. I'm John Whitfield here with Carlos Zamora from InvestFuse and Carrot, and then Brandon, aka Papa P from TED Systems and Operations. Before we start, make sure you connect with us. Links.letstalkrealestate.tv. I got to start putting that link up so that you can go there. And follow us on YouTube so that you get notified when we go live every Friday. Today, we're going to start off a little mini series. We've been getting some consistent updates from Papa P about his adventure into parks, which is kind of fun. Like the entire time this podcast has been running, we've like heard you go from 0 to I can't even remember how many parks we have now. Not 20 people, but 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I own
I don't
2
know. It's
closing on
some
my 3rd.
number. There you go. So we're gonna start a little mini series so that we can I've had questions, users have had questions, Brandon has been asked questions on Instagram. So we thought we'd start with a little kind of mini series kind of talking about mobile home parks. So first off, this kind of episode, we're going to talk about pricing, what you need. Why don't you do the intro, Papa P, about what we're going to talk about?
Oh man, that's so kind of you because I know you're the intro man who's crushed it. I've only been allowed to do the intro once, and it has not held a candle to what you do.
Just
You
got the
know,
special sauce.
but I own 2, so we're at just about 100 lots right now, closing on our 3rd one in by the end of February. That'll put us about 170 lots, 160, 70 lots and change. 3 parks, and actively looking for more. And so I've been posting about it on social media, and I get a lot of questions from either wholesalers or people wanting to buy their first park, and they're asking me questions about just offering and stuff because I come from that wholesaling side, right? So these guys that are ready to step up, they're asking me like, okay, well, making an offer, what are you considering in the pricing and stuff? And I always have to stop them and I say, well, in order to price accurately, there's a lot different type of questions that you have to ask a seller that's different than buying a single family residential as a wholesale, right? Typically, we're asking condition, room count, stuff like that. With a park, there's a lot of other things you need to take into account and stuff that you should just ignore that the seller tells you because it can only cloud your judgment and not give you what you need. You need to just stay on your path and stay focused with what your numbers say. And then once you do that, like how to make the offer, pricing it properly, and then from there, like the biggest thing is once you get a yes from them, right? And you get something signed, that's when the real work starts. Like to actually take a park down. And so that's kind of like, what does it look like? Like, how do you structure that deal? And then your due diligence stuff, how long is your inspection period? What do you have to ask during inspection? And those are kind of things that I get asked a lot. And I have documents that I prepared and I either give them out or, kind of go from that. So.
I'm excited. I'm excited to dig into that. That's just today, right?
I mean, yeah, hopefully we can get through it all. I don't want to bore it. It might have to be 1 or 2 eps. It just
I know.
depends
We'll
on
see.
how deep we go into it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, some of that stuff could be its own episode, especially when we get into the due diligence things, because that's where a lot of guys make the mistake, where you learn like I did and you don't do any due diligence on your first park and you get extremely, extremely lucky.
Cool. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll get through all that this episode. If not, we'll do another episode. But there's even more coming after that. So, the whole process? I think we might go through most of the process. So, I think we'll talk a little bit about syndication, raising funds, closing the deal. And then, what's the first things you do? What's year 1 look like? Year 2 look like? It'll be fun. So, make sure you're following us. Links.letstalkrealestate.tv. Look, I'll throw up a QR code for you guys to do that.
I like the lens it's coming through too, as someone that's like a long-time wholesaler, has managed teams, managed a lead gen team of cold calling, now moving to different asset class and really a different type of business raising money too, which a lot of wholesaling, like 2024 is going to probably have a lot of stuff if already the first few weeks have been an indication. So a lot of wholesalers are not only pivoting their own strategy of what they're doing, but they may be getting into, other stuff. So it's good to hear that perspective when other people are up to.
One thing that, John, just trying to break it down, pricing and initial questions, I think should be this episode. But where we should really start is what to look for and what not to look for in a deal itself, like when to make an offer or not. A lot of guys don't know this, but it's like you can buy the wrong park, too small of a park. Like there should be some limits, and then like the location of those parks, all those things you got to take into account. Like I talked to someone before, and like they took down like a 6-unit park, or they were wholesaling, and I was trying to explain to them that's not really a mobile home park, and they didn't understand what I meant because it's legally a mobile home park. I'm like, a mobile home park operator is not buying that park. Like that's not, like, nobody wants that. You may get a guy who's buying duplexes, and he's like, oh, I was 6 units for the same price as a duplex. I'll buy that. But you're not getting a guy who's owning like 4 or 5, 10 mobile home parks going, yeah, let me add on that little 6-unit guy. And there's reasons why too.
Lost John's audio.
Lost John's audio.
What? It helps if you're about to say something, you're not muted. All right. Before we get into that, though, I did want to say we here at Let's Talk Real Estate and Stuff, incorporated headquarters, would like to talk to our audience and just say we're going to continue chatting up here, but we would also like to get more people like you lovely people to come watch us. So we don't currently make any money off of this podcast at all. And we haven't. We're approaching year 2, right? Year 3? I'm confused.
Yeah,
Something
2.
Like that. Year 2, whatever it is.
2 years, yeah.
So what we've done is we've just started I'm throwing this up here. It's a little support our podcast. Consider it buying us a cup of coffee, although we won't be using it for coffee. We'll be using it to grow our audience. But if you scan that and send us a little donation, we will happily throw some of Brandon's or mine or Carlos's
documents.
Documents.
I will volunteer today. Anybody who donates off this episode, if you just DM me the word donate, show me that you donated, I will give you all these documents that we're discussing today, which have taken me multiple deals and time and money, and sometimes helps of lawyers to put together.
Love it. All right. So scan that QR code, send us anything. We would much appreciate it so that we can continue to grow this and be here. So I'm going to move that over there and then give it to this. And now let's talk about some parks. I think I would like to, since we're starting out this kind of a mini series, everything that you've kind of prefaced that we're going to talk about today is great, but I would love to just hear from you as succinctly as possible so we can get to the meat. Why parks?
As succinctly as possible, a lot of units in a very short location, capitalization of income.
Wow, that was really short. That was a lot shorter than I was
Maybe not that
expecting.
succinct.
I can go to, I own 2 parks within 30 miles. I'm within 100 units of my rentals within 30 miles. I could spend a weekend out there, talk to every single tenant. It's basically as beneficial as an apartment complex, but yet more style of a single family. You get a house, you got a driveway, you got a yard. So it's a perfect blend of apartment, single family, but you get the benefit, which a lot of single family guys who are getting into the rental game don't understand, called capitalization of income. I can force my appreciation because my property is valued based on the capitalization of its net operating income. It's not valued on the market value of the property like a single family home. Doesn't matter what you rent a single family home out for, okay? That house is only worth what Mary and Joe down the street are selling their identical cookie cutter for, right? It's condition in that. Mine, it doesn't matter the condition a little bit, but mostly only thing that matters, how much money am I bringing in and how stabilized is that park? And so I bought it for those 2 reasons, and that's why I kind of came across this. And the bigger they are, the easier they are to operate. So like you have this economies of scale thing when you start like hub and spoking them.
Is the forcing appreciation up front, is that a variable or is that mainly an opportunity? Are you able to like refinance out and pay investors back up front? Is that the main reason
So
you're doing
that's
that?
like and that's the beauty of it, right? So whether you're doing it to sell or not, like I take that into account when I'm making my offer, like what's my exit? And for me, it's long term, so it's always refinancing. And yeah, so if I buy something for 550 or $1 million, right, and I put some money in, let's say I put 500K into it, jack up rents over the course of 2-3 years, I go refinance, and now we're 3 mil. I can refi that out, and it's talk to your tax accountant, but it's tax free because it's loan proceeds, and then I have a choice of either returning capital to investors or giving it to them and keeping their capital in, and they take it as proceeds. So it's a great way to do it. How we currently structure is, yeah, we will refinance, return capital to investors. The leftovers become like proceeds to them, and they remain in the deal, maintaining ownership of the parks into perpetuity with us at an even split.
How different at all is the back end, the investment pitch? So you're telling us why you as an operator, let's get into it. But when you're raising money and you're telling people, hey, you have an opportunity to invest in this, what's like your current pitch? And is it the same thing? Is it do you tell them the same thing? It's a blend between multifamily, single family, and there's benefits of how I could pay you back faster and stuff like that? Or what do you think?
So I'm going to show you something here. And one of the things that I do is it's a perfect blend of one, you don't want to force anything because you want to talk to the people. You want to talk to the people that are that don't need to be sold on it. And I'll show you what I'm going to show you in a second. But you want to talk to people that don't need to be sold on it in general. You want them to do their research, but you want people to understand that the depreciation that they get, hang on a second, John, that the depreciation that they get on this is very beneficial, that it's a passive income, that they're not actually the operators of the park. So once people understand that, yeah, it's pretty much, do I like the operator? Do I like the deal? Those are the two things. Now, if I'm starting from scratch with somebody, not only do I got to sell them on me as an operator, sell them on the deal itself, then I got to sell them on this whole syndication thing, sell them on the passive income thing, sell them on depreciation, sell them on all of these things. It becomes a lot harder. So you really want to find the investors and people that understand those basic concepts and constructs and are looking for something like that. They're just trying to find the deal and the operator. And that's really what I'm looking for, is then I'm just showing them who I am, what I stand for, and then presenting the deal. So John, if you want to share my screen, one of the things I put together is basically, and it's just quick, I'll scroll through it, but it's just
Yeah, is it coming up? There it goes. Okay, I was confused. Go ahead.
yeah, it's basically just what our brand value is, just what our perspective is on affordable housing, what our ethos are, what we plan on doing, what we think the economy is going to do, and why we're buying mobile home parks. So I put together, what is it, like a 4-page document that I send out to all of our investors pretty much, that explains all of that to them. So if they're already on board, you can unshare that, John. If they're already on board with syndications and investing, this now goes and sells them on partnering with us as opposed to somebody else, because now maybe they read it and they're like, you know what, I align with what this brand is doing and what their belief is in the economy. So I packaged that together because on my first raise, I was encountering all these questions. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put down what we stand for and why we do what we do. And if it aligns with them, then they'll be ready to have the conversation on the next thing, which is the deal itself.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Good qualification.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into our main topic. I mean, that was really helpful to understand why parks are beneficial, and we'll probably spend another episode a little bit more on the raising money.
On your raising money
so.
doc, do you have a video that shows like Trailer Park Boy clips from the TV show?
Man, I still haven't been able to watch that because
So funny, dude. So funny.
my wife doesn't want to watch it, and every night we have to watch a couple, our shared shows, and I don't have any free time to watch it on my own. But yeah, I would love to get into that one day. One day when I have some free time.
I should probably watch some of that during my comedy when I'm watching something funny. Yeah. And then once I finish the Elon Musk book, I'll have a nice a nice document of nuggets that I can go through on the Elon Musk book.
I gotcha. Okay, I look forward to that.
Yeah, we
About I
should
think
make
I
that an
just got
episode.
100. I think I just got 100
should.
pages into it.
We should.
Okay. Pricing a park. If I was to hire a VA and have them start calling park owners, what 60 questions should I have them ask? And is that the
Well,
right way to do it?
no, man. It's like, so first off, like before you start pricing a park, you got to understand what a park is. So like you have two types of parks: tenant owned and park owned. So like tenant owned is that they rent the land from you and they're responsible for the home because they own it. And then park owned, which is what I like, which is very atypical, nobody likes it, is I own the land and I own the home and I rent you out the home. So I may charge you $350 for the land, and then you park your mobile on top of it, live there. And there's a longer, I think the average is 6 to 8 years is how long they stay. Typically longer actually, but that's, I think, the industry numbers. And then my park owned model is I own the home and I rent that out for you, maybe $950 and, you know, $350 and then a $600 for the home on top of it. And my average is about 18 to 24 months on somebody staying in there. So I have a higher turnover. I have to maintain the property and all of that.
In tenant owned, is there like an HOA? Can you enforce like this is how
Bro,
things need to look at all so that you
not,
can attract
yeah.
people?
No, yes and
Okay.
no.
Okay.
We have a rule book. Well, we have a lease with rules, and I'm putting together our company's official rule book as we speak.
Well, yeah, I'm saying park owned, it's easier to do that. I'm saying if you were to go to tenant
No,
owned,
it's
you
just
can't
as
control
easy.
that at all.
So I take back my it's not just as easy, it's just as possible, but not as easy. So yeah, I could sit here and say, John, every home needs to have skirting and no trash outside. The trash is easy for me to maintain because it's my lawn, my yard, boom. Now, me telling you that you got to put skirting on your house becomes a little bit of a thing because John's broke and he doesn't have the money for it and he's only paying $350 in lot rent. So how does he expect to come up with $1,500 to skirt his home? That becomes iffy. Power washing, you know. So like we're about to power wash all of ours in our one park. I'm just going to get permission from the 4 that we don't own and say, I'll just power wash these for you. Like, and I know guys who have I know one guy who has a program called the HIP Pro Home Improvement Program, which we kind of stole and implemented in our new park too for tenant owns. Is like we budget certain money and we'll ask you to like maybe finance that over a couple months. Like we'll spend the $1,500. Can you give us $50 extra a month till that's paid off type of thing? But you do lack control on the quality of the home, but you have a right to say no to people moving in too.
Okay. That's intriguing to know. So you like the second option.
Yeah, I like it. It's not what everybody likes though. Like, so the industry
Is
as a
it
whole prefers tenant-owned homes. And here's my belief. I'm always starting shit, right? And I just think people are fucking lazy. I think you have a bunch of guys who come from a corporate finance background who come into this and they don't want to get their hands dirty. And the easiest thing is tenant owned. It is easy. And the second argument is that the income from your park owned model is not considered income. You don't get to capitalize that. So if I'm making so if I have $350 on lot rent and $600 on home rent, the total is $950. The banks in buyers only consider the $350. They say the other $600 is a wash, a waste, because you're wasting it all on maintenance. So we're not going to pay you for that. So everyone's like, well, F it. If that's the case, banks won't loan on it. Buyers won't consider it. And I'm being loose here, but buyers won't consider it. I'll just keep it as tenant owned so I don't have those responsibilities and extra expenses. My thing is most tenant-owned models operate at a 30 to 35% expense ratio. We operate at a 50% expense ratio. However, I am getting so that extra 15 to 20% differential of work, I am getting between 50 to 100 times more in income. So for me, that delta makes sense. Plus, I also have this inherent belief that one day, and I know I'm going to be right, but it is my gut feeling based on my experience in this industry that banks are going to value park-owned home income. They will. It's just the way it works, man. Before they didn't even want to loan on mobile home parks to begin with. Now they are. The next logical step is they say, wait a second, these aren't even that bad. They're in good shape. They're 2000. I'm talking about newer models too. And I
Yeah.
believe they will do that. And I want to be poised for that. So I go after park owned home. I do not convert them. And I like that model. We make more money that way.
Yeah, it does make sense that you make more money
It's
that way.
harder. It's harder work, bro. Like
Oh,
it's
I'm
hard.
sure.
Like
It's like owning an apartment complex.
people call it a flat apartment complex.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
good one.
difficult.
All right, so
I was going to
Go
say,
ahead,
I'm just
Carlos.
curious, high level beginner question on mobiles. Ballpark, how much longer, if at all, does it take you to do due diligence or underwrite a mobile home park deal versus like a wholesale deal for single family? Or I don't know how much you've maybe done due diligence or underwrite like a multifamily deal.
I've never done a large multifamily deal, so I can't compare it to that. But I will say, compared to most everything else, like where a lot of wholesalers make mistakes, is they put in like a 30-day or a 60-day due diligence. So on this one, so the one I currently have under contract, we did it in September, and my due diligence just expired in January. So 1, 2, 3, a 90-day due diligence period. And the smart thing to do is if you're writing your contract and it was not in mine, I have to redo mine. And but is that your due diligence period starts on the day that the seller gives you all requested items. That language is not in my contract, and I would
That's
like to add it
smart.
to that because I ran into that. Luckily on this deal, the seller had no problem giving me an extension, and we added on another 60 days because it took them 30 to give me the due diligence stuff. But yeah, 90. My previous one before that was, I think, about a 60-day due diligence, close to 9, like 70 something. I think it was close to 3 months on a due diligence period for that one as well.
And then what about just like underwriting, like evaluating how much you want to offer on the park versus a
I could do
wholesale
that.
deal?
I could do that on the phone. It doesn't take long.
Hmm.
If you ask the right questions, then we'll get into that. But like if you ask the questions and you have a calculator in front of you, I know what to offer because I don't care what you say. I'm just going to ask you the basic questions, and it runs into my formula, and then I'm going to go from there. And then I'm going to assume all the known factors and price that in with my quick formula.
Got it. I was just curious, just because that's such a big part of wholesaling. It's like when you talk to a seller, you have to run comps, which is going to be
See, that's
boosting
the beauty
sales.
is there are
And
no
it's different
comps,
with
bro.
commercial.
There's
Yeah.
no comps. I mean, yeah, there's comps, right? You don't want to overpay, like, because if I'm capitalizing that income at like a 10% and there's people getting 15%, it's different. Those are made up numbers. But so you do want to know, like, wait a second, why am I buying this 30 lot park for $1 million when there's one down the road that's making the same money for 800K? So in a sense, you do want to look at the market, but really it's just about the income that it's making.
Cool.
So you should be pretty quick with valuing.
Very cool.
Is it useful that you're able to do it quickly? So what are those questions that you
So
ask?
like, so one is what do you own? So like the first thing I'm gonna ask is like, hey, do you have a lot of park owned, or do you just rent the land out? Do you rent the lot rent? And then that pretty much tells me, and I ask quantity. And so I'm like, okay, how many total lots do you have? And then how many are park owned? How many are tenant owned? How many are vacant? Boom. And that's pretty much it. And then I say, what's your average rent?
You ask about RV slips in that too, like short-term rental?
So you're making that statement because I bought one with a mobile home park and an RV park in it. Yeah, those are very rare. So if that's the case, then yeah, I'm gonna ask RV questions, but that's a hybrid type of park.
That's the exception. Is that
Yeah,
you run into that?
yeah. I mean, most of the time you're just gonna have a straight mobile park for what we're talking about.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I'm gonna ask those questions. Then the biggest ones are city water, city sewer. So everyone asks that question, but then you need to ask them what type of pipes they are, because that's going to help you on your
Underground
CapEx.
or in the mobile homes?
So underground, well,
Okay.
all of it, but generally under the mobile home, if you're talking about like 80s and it's all CPVC. But I'm talking about in the ground because so I was looking at one park in Kansas that had like Clayburg pipes, which is literal like it's like or Orangeburg, it's like a clay pipe that they used back in the day, but over time it just kind of like
falls apart.
Yeah, it falls apart. It's like a very fibrous type of thing, and it falls apart. And so your infrastructure is the biggest part of your due diligence and questions is your infrastructure. Water pipes, not just who pays. Everyone knows that. Oh, who pays for the water? Who pays for the electric? Who pays for sewer and trash? Those are important. Tell me about your pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get the mom and pop and they're like, oh, well, they're old, they're from blah, blah, blah. You start, well, are they CPVC? Are they galvanized? Are they cast iron? Are they Orangeburg? Like,
Cast
what are
iron
they?
pipes. That's a thing.
Well, it just depends on how old the park is, like in what part of the country you're in.
Interesting.
These are just all questions I would ask, and like if they're the original owner, they'll know. If it's a corporate company, generally, if it's corporate, you probably already have a whole packet of info because guys, no, I'm not saying I'm corporate, but people like me, we document everything. So, I mean, if I'm going to sell something I own, I'm going to have all that documentation to show you what I know.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and pops aren't like that though. So those are the biggest things because that's going to affect my CapEx because I'm going to deduct that from an offer I would have made you
Right.
and say, here's what my offer is now.
So I'm just curious, lack of knowledge here. If they're not on city water, how are they providing water for a lot of trailers?
So I have two of them. So I got one park that's on city water individually billed. I have no part in that. Then I have another one that's city water.
Each.
Each home has its
Okay.
own meter at the street, and each one it's beautiful. My first park, I got lucky. Now if it's city water but 1 meter, it means I foot the bill for the water.
Mhm.
And that's a pretty big bill. I'm paying like $1,200 a month right now for that bill.
Mhm.
And then if it's well, which my third park is a well, I am servicing the well, paying for the maintenance, paying for the monthly health department inspections and chlorine and all the stuff that has to go into it to maintain healthy well water to service my entire park. So that's typically what it is. Now, you can curb some of those expenses. But again, that's all part of. So like once you price it in, like you come up with your pricing, your capex to fix all these things, and then you have a strategy. Like what's your strategy? So you could do bill backs. You could connect to city water if it's on a well. So you could do all those things to help cover those expenses, and it's called an expense recovery, where you then bill back. So like, and not every state you can, but let's say if I'm paying for well, I may be footing the bill and the water's free, but it's not free to me. I have to
Mhm.
maintain that well. So I can charge you, depending on the state, I could charge you a flat rate for the usage of my water, or even meter you and charge you for the usage of how much you use to make it more fair for my tenants, and then at least recover some of my expenses to maintain that well system.
Yeah.
But you got to check with the state to make sure it's legal in your state.
But septic's probably the more expensive thing than.
It's not. I love septics. I'll do septic all day long. So one of my parks is individual septic. Another one is city sewer, which is nice. And then my third one is a 2-to-1 septic system, which is the bane of my existence right now in my due diligence. So if it's 1-to-1, I would recommend getting them inspected.
Like one septic tank per trailer.
Yep.
Okay. Are they smaller tanks? Or are they the normal size for a normal house?
They're going to be the normal size depending on when it's built because they don't go off size of a home. They go off a bedroom count because it's not about the size of the home. It's about how many people are going to be taking a shit in your toilet, and they base that off the bedroom count.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So pretty much, yeah. But then code changes, right? So in my one park, that back in the day, you could have 2-to-1, and you needed 1,000-gallon tank. Well, I talked to the city, and they're like, "Listen, if you're 2-to-1 and you have a vacant lot and you want to put a new one on, we're gonna make you upgrade it to a minimum of 1,500 gallons." And I'm like, "Oh shit! Like, so that's gonna be expensive." And they said, "If you're new construction, our new code is 2,000 gallons." So there's a difference. So in my one park, I had to budget for replacement of a majority of my 2-to-1 septics for because I have vacant lots. So I'm budgeting for all of that stuff. And that goes into Carlos's question on the due diligence. As I go down the line, these questions that I'm asking will play a part into a bigger due diligence request and due diligence inspection items that I do once I have it under contract. I'm not going to worry about all that shit at my offer. My offer, I'm just going to ask you who pays for what, what's the quality or what the material is, and I go through and I punch it into my formula to see if we can even make a deal.
Yeah.
How much of that's public knowledge? I was wondering.
Public is in like I could just Google it. No.
Yeah.
Public is in I can make a phone call and find out. Yeah.
public. I more so meant like some single family stuff. Like you can just find out online, like
So I can find
ownership
out that it's
and.
on. I can find out that it's on septic or well by looking. Um, so like it just depends, man. Like you can
Mhm.
they keep records of stuff. Yes, the county does. So like every time I pump one of my tanks in Georgia, they send that to the health department. So technically there's a record, but
Hmm.
um, you know, no.
How often do you have to get a septic tank pumped when you have that 2 to 1?
So the general rule of thumb is, I talked to one guy, he said 3 years. I was always taught in Florida, every 2 years you pump your septic. And same in Arkansas, like our one guy, we used the same guy that put the septics in back in the 90s and 80s, and that guy still pumps out our tanks at that park, and we put them on a cycle.
So, I mean,
You
you're
see how
doing,
like complex it is, right?
yeah.
When you're dealing
Mhm.
with, it's not an apartment complex because every apartment complex is connected to city water, city sewer. Just about all of the big ones, like bigger ones, not your small 4, 8 units, they're all individually metered. It becomes so much easier. Here, I had this flat apartment complex with all this infrastructure, pipes going everywhere underground, and they're all old. So you
Uh-huh.
don't know where shit is. You don't know the materials could be patched. You have all this stuff to figure out that a lot of wholesalers don't realize when they put it under. They just hear, "Oh my God, I'm getting 12 units for like a third of what I would pay for a 12-unit apartment complex." Like, oh, this
Mhm.
is a deal. And it's not how that works.
So when you're looking at pricing and you're looking to kind of see if even a deal can be done on the phone, like, um, let's run through that list again because I know we've kind of like started to ask questions. So you're asking, uh, how many lots? How many lots are tenant owned versus park owned? You're asking city water or well water, and you're asking septic or city sewer.
Or listen, there's other things too. Um, I will not touch a wastewater treatment plant or a lagoon. So do you remember my story on the
I
lagoon where
remember,
I was
and we showed pictures of it in here. It's like the most
yeah, and you
disgusting thing
remember
I've ever seen in my
I
life.
didn't know what it was, and that's how the
Yes.
guy knew I didn't know what I was talking about because I thought it was a fucking pond. And so I'm like, oh, did people fish in there? Like, oh my God, oh, people hang out. And he's like, it's the lagoon, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what I'm talking about. And it took me a while, and I realized how dumb I was. Oh, God, yeah, that was embarrassing.
How
I put
much are
that
you
to.
finding lagoon? Like, okay, so
So I
wait,
saw
like,
this, it was a beautiful deal the other day, and I was like, man, this is nice. And then it said lagoon system, and I just shut the window, and I was like, nope. I probably would be okay buying a lagoon if it was just my money. So if me and my wife found a
Mm,
small park, maybe like 20, 30, 40 units with a lagoon, and we would buy it, I would do it just so I could educate and learn how to do it. Um, and I wouldn't be as opposed to that as long as the city and county, everything was in line with there and it was all in compliance. I would probably do it for fun as an educational thing as long as it was my money. Um, and then the wastewater treatment plant, Brown, like
like there's literally a
it's a
wastewater treatment.
gigantic. I can't paint this picture. It's a gigantic machine that processes your waste,
And
and
then what
it's
puts it into a septic system? Or
I'm
yeah.
picturing the thing like in Star Wars when they get stuck in that little garbage disposal thing. That's
So
kind of the
kind of,
impression
right?
I
Like it's
got.
a big thing. The problem is, like I've heard some guys say, listen, if you maintain it, it's not a big deal. Like no worries, no worries. For me, I've heard stories of them going out and someone having to foot a 150K bill to fix it, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace it. And as a syndicator, if I'm not budgeted for that and that expense pops up, I have to do a
Mhm.
capital call to my investors or get
That's
a
not fun.
loan. And that's not fun. And I'm not, uh, it does. I don't like that. I don't like the non. I could control a septic system if one of my tanks goes out, right? And tanks just don't go out. Like if they back up and they're just gone to, hell in a handbasket. 5 grand to 8 grand. My rent roll can support that if I haven't budgeted, if I didn't do my job. And all of your tanks are not going out in the same month. So
Right.
over time, you do maintenance, you do a maintenance cycle on your tanks, you're maintaining them. I like that, dude. I handle that. I know that because I'm from Florida and we all are on septics in the country.
Where you are,
Wastewater,
yes.
yeah, my area. Wastewater treatment plants, I don't know unless I was well capitalized
Yeah.
personally and on a syndication level to because personally, I'm saying, like, if I had an extra $250,000, $500,000 laying around, and I knew that if that expense, I could loan the syndication company that money as an operator, I would be more comfortable.
Yeah.
But if you're new starting out and you see lagoons and wastewater treatment plants, you need to just have dollar signs in your eyes and like problems. Health department issues with lagoon and operational, although you could sub that out to someone to maintain it.
Let's
And
just,
wastewater,
for the viewers, just describe the lagoon in 30 seconds so they understand what the hell you're talking about, because we've seen
a
it.
lagoon is like a giant pond that your shit gets dumped into, and then there's
Like
bacteria.
literally every poop from every trailer is pumped into it.
But there's
right?
bacteria layers that absorb and transform that bacteria into beneficial. And so it's like it's self-regulating and eating away at the sludge stuff and different layers. Like I was reading about it, there's many layers to this bacteria inside of it. And yeah,
And you
it's
asked
kind
this
of
guy
like,
about fishing in there.
yeah, you know, it's kind of like if you were a Boy Scout, when you were in Boy Scouts and you had to go to the bathroom, they told you to dig 6 inches down into the ground and then cover it up because the top layer of that bacteria could break it down, human waste down. Kind of the same concept, only it's a giant pool of poop. But it doesn't smell. It does not smell. If it's maintained, you don't even know. I mean, like I was in a park and I had no idea. I thought it was a pond.
It's so funny.
If you ever look at aerial views of pig factories, you will see these lagoons there, where they pump the pig sludge into.
It's wild, dude. I remember embarrassing. That was embarrassing.
All right, so you won't touch those two things. What else are you asking to plug into your initial kind of? Is anything going to happen?
And then, so one of the mistakes people make is they ask how much their expenses are. Don't. Their expenses are not your expenses.
If you know how to run a park, you're going to come in and do the right thing.
So all I care about is what those factors are, and then I say, what are you collecting every month? Not what's your rent roll, because people will be like my one guy is like, oh, my rent roll is 19. Okay, cool. And then I find out he's actually only been collecting every month 15. Well, bruh, just because on paper you should be collecting 19, if no one's paying you and you're only making 15, that's the real number. I make 15K in that example, and then I'll run it. If it's tenant owned, I'll run it at a 35% expense ratio. And if it's park owned, I run it at a 50% expense ratio. I don't care what their expenses are. None of it, because it's all made up numbers.
You looking into like how much of the land you would have to maintain at this point, or are you doing that in due diligence, or are you budgeting that somehow? Like your first park, you have to hire a landscaping company to come.
$100 an acre a month is what I budget.
Okay,
it's pricey. It's extremely pricey, but I'm a very conservative person, so I budget based on all the properties I've owned and even my parks. It roughly comes in at $100 an acre. So if you got 20 acres, you're spending $2,000 a month to maintain that. But a lot of guys have tenants maintain their property.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is a tenant versus park owned, it's different. Yeah.
I like the control aspect of maintaining my yard. It just depends on the type of park it is too. Like you would have to ask me on each individual park. So like the one park I bought, they maintain their yard and I maintain the common area. And I'm kind of keeping it that way until I do some stuff, and then I'll take over the whole thing. Once I clean it up and redo the roads and everything, I'm going to take on that expense.
Ooh, roads. Do roads matter inside of your park?
Roads definitely matter. I have gravel roads and asphalt roads. I was taught that. My one guy told me, I keep gravel roads because it keeps people going slow. And when you have asphalt, they get all slick with it and they start speeding through your community. And so I was like, I'm buying that hook, line, and sinker. Like, fuck yeah, I love it, dude. That's great advice. I'm going to recite that to everyone who asks me what my preferences are. And then like now I have to keep gravel at the end of the street in my cul-de-sac, and my landscapers always fill in all the divots and rivets and washouts and stuff. So I keep a steady stack on both of my roads of gravel, and I get a bill for $400 every couple months for them filling in. I mean, he has carte blanche to go do what he needs to do. If I'm in every month I visit, and if I see something, I should take a photo and he fixes it for me. Now asphalt, that's expensive, dude. Both of my other parks, like the third one I'm buying, they're all jacked up. I've talked to the county in one, and like they have an issue with the quality of roads. My other one, the community members have an issue with the quality of roads. One of them has an RV park. People don't want to drive their RVs in, so my RV park section is always quite empty, below 50% occupancy, because it's a cluster, dude. There's potholes everywhere, just everywhere. Patches, there's bumps, and it's like,
So are you saying you still are sticking to your preference of gravel roads, or are you saying that asphalt's better for when you're doing an RV, but it's more costly to maintain?
if you could budget for asphalt, you do asphalt. Now we're going to get into a conversation of financing. When you go for bank financing, depending on the type of park and all that, it looks better when you have a nice maintained asphalt road with curbs and little
You're saying when
parking
you're trying to
pads.
refinance.
It looks like a community, not a trailer park. But to convert my gravel road into an asphalt road, I would have to measure. But if you're talking like $3 a foot, I mean, it just depends on the market rates. But you're talking a quarter mil, 300-400K, maybe half a mil, depending on how much road you have, how many parking pads you have. If you're not budgeting for that stuff up front, so my 2 parks need to be resurfaced. I've budgeted for resurfacing of roads and doing parking pads in the one. I mean, I budgeted like a quarter mil in each park just for roads.
So that is something
I measured the roads, got market quotes. No one went out there, but I got like the market rates to resurface asphalt roads, and I measured all the roads, and that's
included in your CapEx.
That's what I raised when I did my syndication. I budgeted and raised for that, so I would not be not having money.
So it is a question you're asking in that initial conversation.
No,
or are you like revisiting it in your due diligence?
Yeah. I mean, I'll ask what type of roads you have, and I'll look at the aerials, and, I can usually tell. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like when you go up to a single family house and you see what the outside looks like, you know what the inside looks like. Say it depends. I could tell based on what the rents are, what your occupancy, how involved in the park you are. I could tell kind of what the roads are going to be like. If you're a hands-off guy, the roads are probably shit. If you live in the park, I bet you the roads are nice.
That's a good point.
You can judge a book by its cover in the mobile park game.
I will get to it, but it's not. And John, you're like, what kind of questions do you ask? I want everyone to know I don't ask questions. I just talk to them. I don't ask.
That was my leading question when I said I don't V8 ask 60
I don't ask questions. These are not questions. I mean, when I call somebody, I'm like, hey, how you doing today? And I'm like, hey, I am calling, me and my wife, we own one mobile home park in your area, and she told me she wants another one. And so here I am calling. Have you ever considered possibly having a conversation about selling it? And they'll be like, no, but I'll talk to you. I'm like, man, I got like blank units. Like, how many units do you have over there? And we just start having a combo, and we share war stories. And by the way, how much do you charge? I'm charging like $200 in lot rent. Like, what are you getting over there? And that's how I kind of get to uncover stuff, because if you just pepper one of these 60, 70-year-old like dudes with these questions, they're just going to be like, no. Especially on one phone call, they're going to be like, nah, dude, I don't have time for this shit.
What's the fishing quality like in any lagoons that you have over there?
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what I do, man, is I take that expense ratio to get my operating income. And that's what I put at a cap rate to see what I can offer. And that's what I look at for what the market is doing. So typically you want to be 3% higher than going interest rates.
Break this down for a person who's never done real estate investing.
If you get a loan at 5%, you want your cap rate to be 8%.
How do you calculate a cap rate, Brandon?
You just take your net income against your purchase price, and that'll tell you what the return is, your capitalization rate.
There you go.
Thank
you for explaining it to us dumb people out there.
So if it's making 150K, 1.5 mil at 10%.
Okay, yes, I got that. Yeah. Cool.
So I mean, it's just odds of you getting a 10% are going to be slim to none. It just depends. And keep in mind, so you want to only take into account the tenant-owned income, and you can add the value back for the park-owned stuff. And I can show you on my calculator how I do it, but yeah.
I would love to see your calculator.
That's what all the ladies say.
I really don't think so. But
hope Mama P isn't listening to this live.
She's the one who says it, bro. Sometimes I call her into our home office and I'm like, hey baby, come take a look at what I just put together. And she'll be like, oh, another Excel sheet. Awesome, bro.
Another kid on the way.
Let's see. What am I doing? I'm trying to share my screen. Another kid on the way. I have to buy more parks before we can have more kids. You guys seeing it?
No. Oh, here it comes.
There we go.
Boom.
All right. Boom. So basically, like, here's a quick, dirty way of looking at it. So I'll
You're
take.
gonna have to zoom in, like zoom in on your spread. There you go. There you go. Thanks,
like,
sir.
I take my projected lot rent, right? And you can add your park-owned home value to it, meaning that's how it's currently done. So when you're coming up with your offer, you have to assume that you can't just capitalize the full income. So anyway, like, I'll take my projected lot rent value and my income, and I'll divide that by my cap rate, and that'll give me what my lot rent value is at refi. So for like this park, it's 3.5 mil. But then if I have $1.5 million worth of inventory, chattel, right? Like buildings, like they call them chattel, but like the manufactured homes that I own, then that
Are
actually
most of the, I'm sorry, real quick. Are you encountering most of the park owned assets are paid off that you're encountering?
Yeah, I mean, typically whenever you buy this, they're, even if they're not paid off, when I pay the seller, they will then pay that debt off and then give it to me, is typically
Okay,
how.
so you're not like continuing to whatever
No.
mortgage payment,
But
loan
yeah, I
payment.
mean, typically they're older 80s, 90s models that somebody bought for a couple grand that are all paid off. Yeah.
Cool.
And so that brings my value up to 5 million. So, I mean, that's kind of how I do it on the back end to see if my numbers make sense when I'm refinancing out of it. But when I'm making my offer, man, like, I'm looking at their asking price and I'm taking into consideration what I want to offer them, what my price per pads are. Can you guys see this?
Could probably zoom in a little bit.
Right? I'm taking into account my offer, and then what they're asking for, like, if it's cash, it's 100% down payment, my closing costs, my capex, what my lawyer's going to be, what any acquisition whole field. So really, if I'm doing all this, my total cash in is 1.14. So like, that's really, I'm offering them 650 or 550, but like, this is really what I'm putting down cash into this deal, if that makes sense. Questions about this?
Your lawyer's making out pretty well, depending on how much work he's doing.
No work at all. I do most of the work. No, I mean, you need it when you're doing a syndication.
Yeah.
They have all the SEC docs and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I'll take that and I run my cash on cash return based off of the total cash in. So let's just say instead of this, I'm doing like 150K down. I'm getting a loan on this park, right? So now that brings my total cash into 740, 742. So that's what I need. That's what I have to run my numbers off of. Yes, I'm buying it for 555. I'm only putting down 150, but when you add all these things in, my total money into the deal, when I go and sell that deal or refinance out, I have to pay that much. You know what I mean? Like, that's my total cash in. And then I have my debt. So I'm still paying 1.1 no matter what when I pay everything off. But my return numbers are all based on my cash in.
Yep.
So here's
what the cash in is calculating the ones in yellow?
No, cash in is just calculating all of these ones.
If there's something wrong with your math. Okay, so not the offer. Okay, I was confused there for a second. It's like this math's not working. Okay.
So I come over here and I punch in and I'm like, okay, this guy's making $6,500 on lot rent. You know what I mean? Like, boom, what is this? And so I run a quick calculation to see, and I'm like, man, okay, so I got 47% expense ratio and I could play with these numbers, you know? whatever. Well, that's going to be 10%, but we'll say 20%. So I'm running 50% expense ratio. That means I'm walking away with $3,200 every single month in free cash flow after covering vacancy, my operating expenses, my maintenance, my property management, all of that stuff. I'm walking away with $3,200. That's my net operating income, or 39K is what my net operating income is. So that means if I offer this guy on this deal 555K over here, that puts me at a 7% cap rate.
Which is not quite good enough. You want an 8%? You said 3% over
No,
5.
I would take 7% if my loan is at 4%.
Okay, I didn't see you at the rate over there. Okay.
And then I take into account my debt service. So that's the other big thing is most guys look at this 3250. So let's just use this example and say that I'm popping off here. I'm offering you 550. You're giving me, I'm putting 150 down. I got seller financing in this example. You're giving me a 4% interest rate over 30 years with a 7-year balloon. I'm paying you $1,900 a month. So now I need to make sure that my debt service is covered by my cash flow, which it is. If you could see here, I'm making $3,250 in net income, right? And my debt is almost $2,000. That leaves me with $1,300 in free cash flow that I'm making off this park. So I actually cash flow positive. My debt service coverage ratio, how much income can cover my debt, is 1.6. Most banks, they used to require 1.25. Now they're more like 1.4. So I am over bank standards on this. If this was a bank deal, I would more than qualify on a debt service coverage ratio basis.
So, okay, so that makes sense for a bank. I'm just curious in a syndication because I know that's what you're doing, right? You're going out and raising private money.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same deal? So, like, that debt service is what you're paying your investors, and so
here's what the investors would make right here.
So they're not receiving the debt service, or they are receiving the debt service and
we receive, so investors receive what's left of the cash flow. So if I'm cash flow positive $1,300, I could split that $1,300 up between, let's say, me and my investor. And so my investor would be making $921 passive income every month without doing anything. I would be making $400 passively, well, not passively, very actively every single month based off of these numbers. So for me, okay, this is interesting, but look at my cash on cash returns. That's not very good, is it? I'm making a 1% cash on cash return.
that's pretty hard to sell.
It is. So unshare me for a second.
Yeah.
And we'll go back to the screen. But it is, but what you got to keep in mind is a lot of guys don't get it. When you're negotiating a deal, a lot of times we're buying value add parks. So that's what the park stands for now. Now this park, on what I paid for, yeah, but it's also at like a 20-some%. It's less than 50% occupancy, depending on the RVs and stuff. I have 64 lots. I have fully developed vacant lots that I can move ones into. So now I'm looking at, okay, that's what it's going to be for year one. So then I create a strategy, my business plan for what I'm going to turn the park into in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, whatever it is. And so that's what then you would be basing your whole thing off of. Yeah, that deal wouldn't look good if that was all you were buying right there.
And you weren't going to do a thing to it, and just
that's a horrible deal. But I'm paying $555, not just for the income, but for the goodwill, the intangible stuff that's not existent now, but I plan on doing to the park. And you could pay $0 for that, or you can up pay for it depending on what you want.
That makes sense. So I'm just, again, like, don't do any of this kind of stuff professionally. I build software. So you raising money from investors, but you also have the debt service in there. So are you saying you're, in the case where you 100% raise private money, is that debt service going to the investors and then they're also receiving cash on cash return in what's left?
I think you're mistaken what debt service is. Debt service is my mortgage payment. I don't owe debt to my investors.
So you are always getting a bank loan?
No, seller financing.
Okay, so that's right. Okay, that was my fault. I should have. Maybe
so
there's another viewer out there that's as dumb as me. So that debt service is what you're paying the owner.
And it could be the bank. It could be a bank. It could be a seller. Whoever whoever gave me that debt, it could be a third party, whatever, dude. Whoever gave that to me, I need to make sure I like to have like a 1 point. So my numbers are this. I like to make sure 60% is what I'm paying is 60% of my net operating income.
So when you're going out and raising private money in the sense of owner financing like you're doing, you're raising funds for
The whole
the
deal.
down payment and the CapEx?
And the lawyers and the assignment
okay.
fees, whatever wholesalers involved, whatever it costs me to get my entry fee into the deal.
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm raising funds for. And then that gives me, and if I did my job right, I raised all the money that gave me enough ammunition to go implement my business plan and succeed at performing that, to then be able to refinance out of this park, to then return the capital to them and continue to operate this park into perpetuity on a big bank loan that we can carry on a stabilized park.
I'm just curious. We're getting into bigger conversations here, but can you roll up multiple parks into
Yeah,
like
that's a whole strategy. I would love that strategy. That's what I call my hub and spoke model. So like once I get into a metro, I want to buy a bunch of parks around it. And then so like if I have a bunch in the same geographic location, you could sell them all together, but keep in mind you're in multiple syndications. So it's not that I own
right.
all of them. So it all depends on what is written in like my time for what all my rules are. It's not like it's just one big fund that owns everything. I roll them all up and then I disperse the money. It's not like Brandin
You're
owns
not a
them
hedge
all.
fund.
Yeah, I own this one with John. I own this one with Carlos. Carlos is expecting a 7-year, hold. John's expecting a 3-year hold. All of a sudden, I roll everything. It just depends. I have to look at each individual syndication and like the benefit of doing something like that. How does that all play together, and does it benefit my investors?
My head hurts a little bit.
Does it? I was thinking about it as I was explaining. I was like, man, I need to like have a better PDF that explains the step-by-step process of valuing a mobile home park.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
I've
there's
seen
a
your
lot of
wholesaling
graphic.
evaluation PDFs, and I can't even imagine how long your mobile home park is
It's
going
a
to have to
complex
be.
thing, right? Like the parks, there's a lot of stuff into it. So when wholesalers reach out to me and they got a deal, most of the time they have no idea what questions they're asking. They've biffed it on the questions, so now they got to keep going back to the seller after they have a contract, which only pisses sellers off, right? They don't understand about like asking about the material, the infrastructure questions. They're just like, here's what it is and here's the price, and you have a 30-day inspection period, and it's like, bro, like that's cool, but
maybe that's what you should do, is like you should come up with some packets to help wholesalers out there so you can get the better deals.
yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, whenever, to end this off, we could stop at the pricing. But when you're doing pricing, please make sure you're accounting for the debt service coverage ratio, whether it's seller financing or assumed bank financing. Very few mobile home park operators are coming with cash. Yes, it's possible on smaller deals, most likely. You're talking a couple mil. Most of them are going to get bank financing or raise funds, seller finance, something. And you have to assume they're going to be getting at market interest rates. You need to make sure when you're making your offer that cash flow covers the current debt service. I don't care what your future plan is. So like in that one, my current, it's not a phenomenal deal year one. It will be by year 3, but guess what? Year 1, I'm covering my debt. We're making money. I'm covered. Worst case scenario, I'm still making money at a very low occupancy, assuming a very high expense ratio. Like I'm still good. So I'm very conservative with that. Then my business plan goes into effect. Do not make an offer on something that would make somebody net cash flow or negative cash flow. And I've seen that on wholesalers. They send it out. I run the numbers and I'm like, bro, like I can't even pay the debt with the income that you're, oh yeah, but in year 1, you're going to infill and you're going to do this. And if that doesn't happen on time, I'm making up the difference with what money? Like the whole point of buying an investment is that it pays for the debt, not that I have to pay for the debt and for the expenses of the property.
That makes sense. I mean, go ahead.
No, I just see too many people making that mistake when they take down deals.
Yeah. So if you're a wholesaler out there and you're wanting to get into wholesaling mobile home parks, because I think that's like the key difference, right? Like you are sourcing your own deals and taking them down. If we're talking to an audience out there that's potentially interested in, having a good assignment fee on a park, make your year 1 cover your debt service. How much do you feel like that wholesaler does have to have a knowledge of what a business plan could be?
I
Do you get what
mean,
I'm
I don't,
asking?
I don't, I
Like,
don't want. No, I don't want you to do that.
so
I want you.
all
I
you
just want you to
want
shut the
is
fuck
you
up.
want a
Yeah.
wholesaler to come to you and say, "Here's a
Here's my
deal
deal,
that I
and here's the
have
price.
that can cover its debt service in year one. Here's the year one with no other plan. Here's the, obviously you need
Because
to know like,
they're wildly inaccurate, dude. Like I'm looking at one that I'm gonna go look at tomorrow. I'm going out to my parks tomorrow, and I got one here. Well, I'm not gonna show you because it's got all the info on it. But and he's assuming in year one, what's this? Get a return of more than 150% in under 2 months with infilling new homes.
Wow.
Bro, you have 60 some vacant lots in this park, like 65 vacant lots. Most of the time you can assume that you're bringing in like 10 homes a year, depending on how big of a operator you are and how
what do
capable
you
you
mean
are
by
getting
bring
in.
in 10 homes a year?
So like I have to go to a manufacturer, buy homes, or
Oh,
go
they're
to a
empty
dealer,
lots, completely
empty
empty lots. Okay,
yeah, and
sorry.
I have to coordinate delivery and setup, purchasing. I have to coordinate the purchasing, the delivery, the setup, and the hookup onto my site, and all the permitting. And he's over here telling me I'm going to get a return of more than 150% in under. Yeah, it sounds real easy, bro. Like that's thanks, man. Like I'm glad I'm the one doing this and not you. That you're going to make that sales pitch. All I need to know are the main things. Just let me know what my occupancy is, what they're making, what my lot rents are, what my, you know what I mean? And then I'll figure it, tell me what my pipes are, my infrastructure, and I'll run it through my stuff and I'll make an offer for you. And if we could come to terms, we can come to terms on it. I don't need you coming up with a business plan for me.
I think that's such an interesting thing because, like, mobile homes are so different than single family homes. Like, a lot of wholesalers, what they're used to is, right, like, sometimes I got to pitch this home to my end buyer, or, maybe it's like some doctor out there who's like, I want some passive income. People buying mobile home parks weren't just sitting down browsing through the internet and saw your deal and was like, I would love to get into that. Like, let's see how I can make that happen. Like, you don't have to come with the business plan. It's intriguing to me to think because like nobody's buying mobile home parks without knowing what they're doing.
That's not true.
Okay.
Wholesalers could be locking them up, sure.
No, I mean, there's definitely people buying parks that don't know what they're doing. The one I was looking at in Kansas was that exact situation, and the park had been completely dilapidated. He ran it into the ground. I mean, I've come across many broker listings with that exact thing, and they're trying to get rid of it. One in Louisiana, same thing, and it went to auction because they refused to take seller financing from me, and it went to auction. And when I talked to the guy, he was like, he wasn't as good of a passive investment as he thought it was going to be, is what the broker told me. And that's why he was offloading it. So a lot of these guys get into it and they hear the story about how easy it is to operate, and they are easy. My one park is easy, but guess what? Like I got issues. Like I got to tow vehicles out when I go down tomorrow. Like I've had break-ins, I've had pipes frozen. Like there's all kinds of stuff. But yeah, people definitely get into this, make the wrong choice.
So if you are listening to this podcast and you're presenting Brandin a deal, don't come with a business plan. Just make sure your debt service is covered.
I'll come up with the business plan on my own. Just let me know what the current facts are of the deal, and and I think that's true for anybody, man. Anybody who owns stuff and does business, they have their own way of doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's like on a wholesaler. Don't tell me what my reno budget is, bro. Just give me my photos, tell me the ages of stuff, and I'll come up with my own budget on a single family house, because my costs, my cabinets, my labor, my tile guy, they're all different than what you're going to charge. I know a guy getting roofs at like 300 a square. I'm paying 375 a square on a roof. He's obviously could do a roof cheaper than me on a flipper. So I don't have that connection. I don't have enough business for whoever he's using to get that discount. So it's the same concept as in this, right? Like don't do that for me. I'll just figure it out with my numbers. Which is why you don't ask sellers what their expenses are, because they'll be like, oh, I don't really have any. The park runs itself. I mean, I mow the lawn myself. I pick up the trash myself. I go fix the sinks myself. It's a real easy thing. You don't have to worry about anything. You get to keep all the money. Really.
That is not how I will be operating my park. My seventh park.
And then there was that other guy I told you about where I went up to go see his park, and he was like, "Oh, this is the easiest thing ever. It just runs itself, and I get to keep all this money, and I live off of it." And I went up there, and the reason why is because he puts no money back into the park. All of his units were dilapidated, tarps on the roof, chickens running around, trash in the yards, broken in windows, boarded up units. He wasn't taking any of that money and reinvesting it. He was literally just spending it and saying, "My expenses are zero." That's because you're not. So it's the opposite. One guy's doing all the work himself, and another guy's just milking it, not doing any work. So that's where you just don't listen to them and go do your own due diligence and come up with your own numbers that fit your business model.
Very cool. Well, hey, thanks for series number 1 of mobile home park pricing, evaluating, due diligence, syndicating. We'll come up with a better title.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be something like how to price a mobile home park.
Love it. If you, so what is it that if somebody does a support to our podcast, what is it that you will send them, Brandon?
I will send them I don't know, what did we go over today? I'll send them so for today's episode, I will send you my branding package and value add package so you can see what it is that I write. And I'm sure you can copy and paste that into making your own thing to send off to your investors.
Love it. Very cool. Scan that QR code, send us a little donation.
I'll throw in my offer sheet too if you want my offer sheet.
So. Brandon's just throwing things in. And then shoot him a message on Instagram with a screenshot of your donation, and he will hook you up. And then tune in for following weeks where we talk more about some mobile home park stuff. But you guys got any of the week to end with?
Yeah, I do. You want to take away the donate thing?
No, I want people to look at it.
I feel like it's made me so small over here. Carlos, how did your 72-hour fast go? I saw you sipping on something. Did you successfully complete your fast?
Of course I did. I haven't done it in a while since I haven't done multi-day since I moved here. So it's honestly been way too long since I did a multi-day fast. Corey Boatwright is the person that's done 100-day fasts. Even though he takes some stuff, I like to go pure no calorie during the fast. But have failed 100
I like
hours.
how he says that. Okay, I got you, bro. You're talking shit. I got you.
About Corey Boatwright now. So yeah, it went well. Felt really, really good, and I'm hoping we can do one together. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I sat down, had some bone broth, and I had some. I went to a farmer's market here a couple weeks ago, so I had some ground beef, ground chicken, and some sour cream from the farmer's market. So good, and taco seasoning made it. Probably had like 1.75 pounds of meat last night of ground beef and chicken. Just crushed that, and then some Greek yogurt.
What a way to end a fast.
Mm-hmm.
Weren't you saying that you can't, like, Brent, I feel like you were saying that when you ended a long fast, you thought you could eat a lot, but you didn't. You couldn't?
Yeah, I went to the store and spent like $100 and some bucks on I had like steak, fruit. We had like a whole loaf of bread, pasta. I was like, I'm going to town. We made this whole meal. And then I sat at the end of the table and I just nibbled on some fruit. And that was all pretty much my stomach could handle.
Yeah.
Was it like hurt, like pain?
You're just like full, kind of.
Yeah, like it's just.
You feel full during the fast. It's all mental games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like your stomach is like, oh my God, I want to eat, and just like an empty stomach that you fill in. And it's almost unsettling in a sense because all of a sudden food's going into something that has been with nothing, and you put one or two in, you take a couple bites, and like Carlos said, you just feel full. Mm-hmm. And when you try to eat more, it becomes an unsettling feeling. You have to allow your stomach to start to process having stuff in it again, I guess.
So how long between when you sip bone broth and did you eat your 1.75?
Like an hour. Okay. Like an hour.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I did it, I gradually worked my way back up. And then I started nibbling. You know what I mean? Dinner was over, and then the nighttime came, and then I was just like nibbling. And then the next morning, I made bacon. We did all kinds of shit, and I was just like, let's go to town on some fucking breakfast.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I think the longest I've ever fasted is like just a little bit over 24. So I will, whenever we decide to all plan this up, I will go as well. I keep telling myself I'm not going to make it, so I should try to like switch the mental game on myself and say you can do it, even though you haven't.
It's really not. It's really not hard, bro. It's not like I was trying to talk my father-in-law into it. and he's like negotiating with me. And I'm like, I don't make the rules about like how fasting works, Rick. And he's like, well, what if I ate something here and then I could make it to like 10 a.m.? I'm like, that's not a fast. That's only fasting like 10, 11 hours. That doesn't count as fasting. That's just you not eating. And he's like, well, I might be able to
Intermittent
make it.
fasting.
Yeah, and he's not even talking about real fasting, and he's just like negotiating. I'm like, that's not how it works. He's like, well, what if I have to take something like some medicine and I need to have something with it? Does that count? I'm like, if you're eating anything, then you're not fasting. He's like, yeah, but what if it's not? I'm like, bro, I was like, I told my wife, I was like, your dad is trying to negotiate the rules of fasting with me. He's a negotiator, and I was just like, I don't think he gets the concept that there's
Science.
About, like, yeah, there's science involved in
Well,
this that I have no control over.
We'll have to get Rick on some seller calls to mobile home park, see how he does.
Yeah.
But it is mental. It's because like and that's his biggest thing too. Is like, I don't think I could do it because I'm so used to eating. I'm so used to eating at this time and this time. And once you get over that concept of like your relationship with the food, I mean, like you use it as a tool. You'll just be like, tomorrow's difficult. I just won't eat tomorrow.
Yeah. Or if you're traveling, you could just be like, I can
Yeah,
just not
like
eat.
Sunday when I fly back, I just won't eat. I might eat breakfast at like 6 a.m. or something, but by the time I get to the airport, travel, I get home at like 9. It's just eating in the airport is not appealing to me. Eating on a plane, eating shit food. So I'll just fast that whole day, and then I'll eat again some probably like Monday night for dinner or something. Because once you make it to the morning's easy too, and it's just like you cruise through your day. And then like the afternoon comes, you get a little hungry. So yeah, I'll probably fast for like a 48 hour fast once I fly back.
Well, hey, think about it. If we're gonna go for 100 hours and you want to do it together, I will keep that in mind. If we want to do that the week of the 22nd and we break a fast live on the 26th with some bone broth.
I don't know, dude. The one thing that gets me on the fast is the migraine. Like that hit me hard on the one, and then I had to end a fast the one day I was trying to do another 72, and I made it to like, I don't know, 50. I don't know what I made it to. It was like day 2. It was like day 2, day 3. I was at like 48, 50 hours. The migraine was so bad. I was just like, I gotta have something. So I don't know if that was a sugar headache or what, but that was murderous to a point where I wasn't working. So
do you get headaches when you fast, Carlos?
The first one I didn't. My first 72 hour, I mean, I was cool with it. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember getting a migraine. It was this other one I got, and I was just like, bro, I had to end my fast because of it.
Yeah, the only times I've had to abort missions similarly, which isn't an issue now because I'm doing dry January at least, maybe even longer than that. Is if I was doing a fast during the week and I had any alcohol, even like 2-3 days before, even like a glass of wine or two, rum and coke,
or you start the fast.
Like if it was just in my system, like the last like 3 or 4 days, my stomach would just hurt and my brain would tell me like it was a different feeling where it's just like, dude, abort mission, and I'd be like, all right.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like when you do it now, like to me, it's just whatever. It's a tool. Like it's kind of like I don't hold myself so strict. I have fun with it. So like if I have to break it, I break it because it's not like this end all be all where I'd be like, bro, I'll just do it again the next day. I'm gonna do another 24, another 72 or 48. So I'm not as strict where I get upset with myself if my body's telling me like, bro, something's off. Cool, I'll end it and I'll be like, I'll reconvene this on Thursday or something. I'll do it again. Like not a big deal for me because I've done it enough times that like I know it's possible. It's just something in my body or something I did is wrong. I need to fix it and go back at it.
Interesting. Well, stay tuned to see if we coordinate.
Hang on, before we get off this show,
yeah.
Carlos, do we have any updates on the aliens in Miami? I mean, you said this happened outside your window, right?
10 minutes away, not outside. I can see the street that it's on just 10 minutes down here, Biscayne Boulevard.
And we've confirmed that it wasn't you just leaving the gym, right?
We can confirm that.
They weren't just like, oh, we got here, this guy's fucking jacked, and he's strutting, bro.
It was not me all jacked up yesterday fasting on a 72-hour fast. No, but some conspiracy theorists that are my go-to think it's more of a cover-up than anything. That aliens are kind of like a go-to government cover-up when there's something else going on. They kind of indoctrinate into our culture with movies and television shows and all this type of stuff. But I don't know. I think it could be.
Do I
It could
think
be
that?
aliens.
Do I think that there's no such thing as aliens and that it's all government conspiracy? No. Do I believe government uses aliens as a cover-up type of conspiracy? 100%. Oh, this testing thing went wrong. It's fucking aliens. Oh, some high-tech thing flying in the sky. Oh, it's aliens. I could see that.
Yeah, I
But
could see a blend of both.
I also believe that there's obviously some other stuff going on in the multiverse of universes here. That's interesting. So we don't actually know. I mean, the videos, no one's got clear picture. No one has. That's what bothers me. It's like it's Miami. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many people walking
Yeah.
around. Like,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
on. There's
Come
no way
on.
that we
There's
wouldn't
nobody
in this
whipped
day
out
and
a
age.
Yeah, that's what's funny is you can get like cops doing all kinds of shit when everyone flips out their phone, but you got an alien walking through the mall in Miami with thousands of people all around and nobody's got a clear photo. That shit
Right.
don't add up to me, dude.
There's some
No.
some fishy stuff there.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all.
That's what bothers me. It's like, come on. It's not like this happened in Nebraska somewhere. No.
Yeah.
in the cornfield.
Did you hear that the tourism department of Kentucky sent up a message into outer space to tell aliens about why they should visit the Kentucky? If they were to come to Earth, they need to visit Kentucky. They sent tourism info. I don't know how true that is, but I was like, good job, Kentucky. Good job.
Please land your spaceships here.
Yeah.
We would like your business.
We have horses and bourbon. Come on down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And baseball bats. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty funny. I haven't heard that before.
So that I just read today. But anyways, guys, I got to go out to the parks tomorrow. I appreciate you guys pre-recording this with me.
Dude, safe travels.
We can pick up the mobile home park stuff next week.
Sounds like a plan. You driving to the parks?
Flying out to Arkansas. I got one guy who's refusing to move his stuff, and I'm towing. It's going to be exciting. He's a you know what, and he's like, he doesn't think he has to pay, and I'm like, dude. I was like, you need to move him. He's like, what's the big deal? You're not using the spot anyway. He's like, because it's my land. You don't get to just park your work trucks all over my land.
Oh,
and
it's
not
the
pay
work
anything.
truck guy. He hasn't moved his stuff.
He said he paid me for December, and he said he was going to be up by January, and then he never paid for another RV. And so I told my community manager, I'm like, you go and tell him I'll be there tomorrow. I was like, if he's not out tomorrow, I'm towing all of his shit at his expense. I talked to a tow company, and they're on call for tomorrow at lunchtime when I'm there. So, I hope some shit goes. I'll tow all of his freaking trucks, and he's got to go pay for them all to get out of impound.
Tune in to Papa P's Instagram.
There's always something, dude. There's always something.
For Trailer Park Boys, led by Papa P.
That's what you need to watch. You might have to just get that on your iPad.
I'm just going to make my own episode. Again, why I believe I should have my own TV show called Trailer Park Turnaround on A&E, because obviously I feel like there's enough characters inside my trailer parks that would make some good viewing.
Totally. 100%. All right, guys. Well, safe travels tomorrow, Papa P. And we'll see you all here next week. Same time, same place, same lovely faces.
Lock and load, guys.
Later, guys.
Peace.